What's up, YouTube? By the time you're watching this video, I will have already been gone to Germany. That was terrible grammar, but I'll be in Germany by the time you guys watch this video, so hopefully you guys can cheer for me at the European International Championships, but I figured I'd do this video before I leave, which is a standard tier list deck maker kind of thing. Celio's Network, my good friend Luke did one, and I was like, yo, this seems kind of fun. Let's look at the top decks. Let's see what decks people have on the radar, and like where do they actually stand in a fun way. Let's just take a look. Let's see where they are. And you guys can tell me that I'm wrong, right, whatever you want in the comments. And yeah, well, I just wanted to do a tier list maker before I leave. I leave in like, I don't know, 20 hours. So I'm excited. I'm really excited. And now let's take a look at the standard format. The standard format right now is defined by two archetypes. Primarily, we have Arceus decks specifically. And then we have Inteleon-based decks, and then I guess we have Mew. Like, Mew is there, and then the Mew counterpart. So there's like a little bit more layers to things, but as a whole... Wait, are these... Okay, I thought these two were together. For a second, I got really confused. But the format kind of like expands a little bit with all these like fun decks, these interesting decks. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have fun decks and things you're considering for Indianapolis, New Jersey, or even Vancouver, the remaining 3 U.S. regionals. I guess that's Milwaukee also. But that's going to be a new format with Astral Radiance cards. So you guys better be ready for that one when that comes out, because I'm going to be putting out some great content. Subscribe to, be on top of things. If you don't subscribe, that's cool. It's fine. I'll just be sad, and you'll make me cry. But let's start off with Rapid Strike Inteleon. I think Rapid Strike Inteleon VMAX, like, probably falls into... Like, we're looking at... Like, these are all playable decks. Like, I think everything on this list is like a playable like deck that is like a like competitively viable deck. So I think this is gonna have to go into D tier. Like, compared to all the other tier 1 decks that currently exist, I think that this definitely falls the shortest in all like the top like tier 0 through 3 decks. Just because at the end of the day, this deck does not accomplish as much as you would like it to, and it just doesn't beat enough. Yes, you can like, be that infinite wall with the Cheryls and the loops and whatever, but your damage output's not that high, and you're so Octillery reliant at a certain point that maybe Marnie could just doom you. For the same vein, I'm going to put Arceus Whimsicott into D tier as well, because I think Arceus Whimsicott, while it's like a cool concept and having the special energy lock is a very cool thing, and it's a very, very good in this format, I feel like, it doesn't stop Alessa's Sparkle from hitting energies onto the board. It does not stop... there's like basic energy decks can still run through you, and it feels like you're very Crushing Hammer dependent, and I don't like decks that have to rely on a coin flip to kind of play the game. This is a deck that I have tested, so I will say that like I've put some time into it, and it has underwhelmed me significantly. After it got top 8 in Sao Paulo, I decided to put some time into it, see if it's really the real deal, and I felt like it doesn't cut out to be what it's supposed to be. Now I'm going to go ahead and put Arceus Gengar into C tier, because I feel like Arceus plus B-Barrel plus Attacker is like a formula that has worked for a few people, but it's wildly inconsistent comparatively to other decks. Yes, you have Arceus, but you don't have Single Strike Energy, which accelerates your deck and makes the deck a little bit better. Yeah, I just don't think Drew did win a regionals with it, and it's a very cool deck. I just think the Tool Scrapper was the card that like legitimately won him the event, as opposed to the deck itself. Now the Tool Scrapper kind of was like, exposed, and people now understand that exists. People are playing a little bit differently. People are playing around that. It goes without saying that Mew Genesect is tier S. It is one of the few tier S decks we have in our format. It's very, very, very strong. It's very difficult to beat. It is like the kingpin of the format. Every time you think about a deck, every time you think about what you want to play, you have to be able to deal with Mew Genesect. Like, can my deck beat Mew Genesect is the question. And a lot of the time it's maybe, and you kind of have to hope things go through. So you have to practice that matchup no matter what you're doing. If you're playing the deck, if you're playing against the deck, be sure to practice that matchup. I'm going to put Arcadura into B tier, because while it's still not very strong and it's kind of fallen off of the meta, I think that Arceus plus Duraludon is like a very strong combination, and it's very low maintenance for what it needs to do. Yes, you're not the most favored into other Arceus decks, but you kind of should have a decent matchup into Mew that doesn't play Horn maybe, and all that stuff. So it is a little bit of a figured out formula, but it is still a formula that works theoretically, and I'm sure that lists can be adapted to make better. It's just not a deck that I have put time into. Arceus Beedrill goes into C tier as well, because I think this deck is very, very cool. After Frank Persick and Michael Slutsky played this to the Full Grip Games 2K, it became kind of a prominent deck in the format, with then having Charlie Lockyer finishing top 16 at Salt Lake City with the Sandaconda VMAX in the deck, and we had Jared I don't know how to say his last name, so I'm not going to try. Playing the Urshifu as well in the deck, giving it kind of a flavor and like an answer to everything in the metagame, theoretically. But it just kind of doesn't hold a candle to the consistency-wise to other Arceus decks. I've put a lot of time into this deck as well. I really like the concept. I think it's very cool. It just is underwhelming at the end of the day. Leafeon, Inteleon goes into D tier because I think Leafeon with the Galar Mine combo and all that stuff is like very hard to execute, and the resources you're putting in is a lot more difficult than like any other like bare bones deck at the end of the day. So to make the Leafeon deck work again, I think you have to play cards like Crushing Hammer or Fan of Waves to kind of slow your opponents down while you're playing the game. And Tool Jammer doesn't go as long as it used to as well. I guess Choice Belt could help with damage, and Inteleon Pings can help with damage, and Leafeon Star kind of helps us having a Gust attack, but I do think it falls short to like every other deck in the top of the brackets. Like I think this is like a very fringe deck that shouldn't ever do well against players that know what they're doing. I'm going to go ahead and put Single Strike into B tier, because regardless of how linear Single Strike is as a whole, Urshifu and Umbreon both hit very good typings in the current format. They both hit very hard, and Single Strike Energy plus Houndoom is a very strong combination. It is a deck that has been always on like the back of my mind when moving into big tournaments, all that kind of stuff, because I think that there's going to be a window where I might not know exactly where the meta stands. I might not know exactly what's going on, and in that situation, I might just lock in Single Strike and say, today I'm going to try to high roll a little bit, and when you high roll, you're going to do very well. I'm going to go ahead and put Suicune Ludicolo as well in B tier. I think Finn's list is really cool, but I don't think everyone's going to play lists that are like Finn's, because it's a little more difficult to play than the traditional lists. Now, that being said, the deck is like very predictable, it's very linear, and Collapse Stadium is making its way into a lot of Arceus Inteleon decks, and Collapse Stadium as just a one-card tech is the answer to pretty much just dumpstering Suicune, which I think a lot of players are figuring out as we move forward. And with Tool Jammer also being a card in the format, and Tool Scrapper, sorry, is what I'm thinking of, also being a card in the format, the Cape of Toughness does not go as long of a way. And yeah, if people can just target your like Lotad or whatever on the bench that's like causing the problem, the game gets a lot easier. Arceus Inteleon goes in S tier because I think this deck is absolutely bonkers, as well as Mew. It's got the very good consistency package, all these niche supporters that really, really help the deck do what it wants to do. It has Dunsparce to cover for weakness, and I mean, you can put in any flavor of whatever you want in the deck. Like, it's got the water, it's got the dark, it's got the fighting, it's got the whatever you want it to be, like package. But the skeleton itself is a very consistent shell that lets you use the Sharon's Care very effectively to out-heal other decks. And like, no matter if you get bopped on turn 2 or even turn 1 losing 2 prizes, you still always have a chance to win the game because of how strong Path Marnie is, or just Path Sydney or Path Flannery, or whatever combination you opt to take. It's very, very strong. Urshi Melanie is in C tier, I think, because while Urshi is a very good card in this current format because of what it does for every deck, I think that Urshi Melanie is just kind of bad because you're very telegraphed in what you're trying to do every turn with the flow. And if decks start playing Manaphy or like that, it just doesn't get the job done. And if you're playing against decks like Mew or Malamar, I don't know how you can win those games. Like, I think, yes, you probably beat Arceus and Inteleon because you can just pick off all their small guys. But how do you like reasonably beat Mew or Malamar, which is like my biggest concern? So this obviously I think just goes into C tier because it's just meh. Jolteon goes into B because while Jolteon is not great, it has like the merit to potentially succeed because of Path Marnie, and then players playing poorly will give Jolteon a lot of outs to just snipe and take out things on the bench, and at that point it's just like a really, really easy deck to play when your opponents make mistakes. So there's where it is. Arc Ice Rider I think goes into C tier because the deck is very like powerful as a whole, but it's like very like you're so Melanie reliant, again, like the Urshi Melanie, so you're very very telegraphed in what you're doing, and the deck eats up so many slots to make sure this combo like actually works. And then we have Urshi Moltres, which goes in A tier. Obviously I think it could be an S tier level deck after Robin's win, but the deck is very difficult to play, so I think that the amount of people that actually will play it or tech for it is very low. But the deck itself is very, very strong, and it has like very good combinations and very good answers to everything if you can play it correctly. Now, that's a huge caveat saying if you can play it correctly, because one mistake, one misplay could really be the dooming factor for a deck like this. So it's one of those like very high risk, high reward decks, but you have to be a better player. Then that's as simple as that. I think Birds Inteleon goes into B tier because it doesn't have Arceus in it. And I presume that's like a given function because there's a bird box on here. So this basically is like a watered down version of the Arceus version. So you kind of get pigeonholed into having this exact strategy of using either Moltres or Hoopa or whatever to kind of do your damage. But at that point, it's very telegraphed. So Arceus can like heal Muse can kind of play around stuff by leaping and like just attacking with 2 Meloetas even. And the strategy is so telegraphed, but the deck is still very good against like bad players. But the actions are so telegraphed in what it's trying to do that it's just not good. We're going to go ahead and put Arceus Malamar into C tier. I have not put too much time into this deck. Max Jammer seems like a cool attack. Path is pretty cool. And it's got the dark typing you need. It's just I just have not put too much time into this deck, so I don't have like that many thoughts on it. Arceus Barrel plus whatever I think goes into C tier as well, because it follows the same formulaic pattern as the Gengar deck, because you're just kind of throwing in whatever else you can and hoping to draw into it would be Barrel. And like maybe turn 1, turn 2, you're looking for all your search cards and you might not find them. You might not get things in the right order. And that's where the game gets really difficult, when you don't have a guaranteed way to find Boss or a guaranteed way to find, Melanie or whatever card, or like Raihan or whatever you're looking for that specific turn, which is why I think this is just strictly inferior to every Inteleon deck that exists in the format. I will, however, put Gengar, Houndoom, and B tier, because I think single strike Gengar with Houndoom just gives you infinite damage. And it's very strong at what it's supposed to do. And I think this deck could like quietly make a resurgence again after Salt Lake, where it did well and then disappeared off the map for a month. But I think that single strike as a whole is very strong, and I think this card could be very good. And then we have Arceus Bird Box. I do have a list up on my YouTube a couple days back, so go check that out. But Arceus Bird Box I think is like a very A tier deck, where it can answer a lot of the top meta decks, but it does struggle against the mirror a little bit, especially if they're playing Dunsparce, because your Zapdos does not go as long of a way. But that being said, it's still a very, very strong deck, because you have Zapdos to answer for Mirror Match. You have Galarian Moltres presumably to answer for Mew, and you have the Arceus to just kind of set up your board and play the game, because Starbirth is such an amazing attack or ability. I think traditional Ice Rider is probably also in B tier, just like Urshi is, just by merit of like what the deck can do and like the limitations that it offers. Yes, Choice Belt helps the deck a lot, but not being able to Melanie and Leon in the same turn hurts a lot. And almost everything can two-shot you pretty easily and heal better, which is just a problem for Ice Rider. And then last but not least, the deck that I think is really funny to have, but it's going to be an A tier. This is probably the deck that is closest to breaking into S tier, if I had to pick a deck. This is probably the deck that's closest into breaking into S tier, is Malamar Inteleon. It is a very high power, like very high action deck that does a lot of actions and does a lot of things, but sometimes you have really awkward hands in the early turns, and players have game plans going into the matchup. So it's a very telegraphed deck once again, like some of the other top, like the B through D tier decks. But by how it's telegraphed, it's not as simple to play against as it is for some of the other B through D tier decks. Now that is my assessment on the current meta. Feel free to agree, disagree, do what you want. Lambast me, I don't care. But that is my assessment of the meta currently. I'll leave the link down below if you guys want to do this yourself. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy the content. Like, subscribe, and if I don't make another video for the rest of the week, I will be in Europe. If I film something else tonight before I go to bed, I will. If not, I will see you guys after I get back from Europe. So thank you guys for the support as always, and be checking out my Twitter to know what's going on.